So, good day everyone. This is James Indotalia speaking. So, we are from the group Women and we are now going to discuss gender and sexuality as a psychosocial issues. So, to begin with, you might be wondering who the person is in our PowerPoint Well, actually that is PJ De La Cruz, more popularly known as Utlum. He was known for stealing an unattended phone above the counter of a store in Manila. And actually, there are people trying to understand him because of his condition, and also there are people who is telling that we should not be tolerating his actions. Instead, he should be in a facility, or worse, he should be in a jail. He should be in jail and paying for his wrongdoings. But more of that, let us now tackle about the psychosocial. Well, according to NSW Health, a psychosocial disability occurs when a person with a mental health condition interacts with a social environment that creates barriers to their equality with others. So to continue, let us now define these four terms: psychosocial, psychosocial issues, reproductive role, and productive role. As psychosocial, this is a term pertaining to psychological and social factors and the interaction of these factors. And psychosocial issues, these means that it needs and these are the needs and concerns relating to one or all of the psychosocial dimensions. And reproductive role, these are the social script ascribed to individuals pertaining to the role in child rearing and related tasks such as maintaining the household. And lastly, for the productive role, it is the social script ascribed to individuals pertaining to their role in economic production and related tasks such as engaging in public affairs and living in the world of work. Well, what does psychosocial really mean? Mm, The term psychosocial is an encompassing term. It is comprised by two primary aspects, which are the psychological and social. There are myriad of ways in defining these two terms, but in essence, psychological pertains to anything associated with mental processes and behavior, while social, this pertains to anything associated with human relationships, connections, and interaction. While the psychological aspect of gender and sexuality anchors itself in the field of psychology, in fields of psychology, and psychology, it is a field of science which concerns itself with how people think and feel, how thoughts and feelings interact and lead to behavior. So, to continue, there are three primary psychological domains. These are the affect, behavior, or cognition, and cognition. First is the affect or the affective domain. This pertains to people's emotions and feelings. And the second one is behavior or the behavioral domain, which pertains to people's actions both observable or overt or not observable, which are the covert. And lastly, for the cognition or cognitive domain, this pertains to people's thought processes such as memory, perception, and information processing. Hence, to say that gender and sexuality have a psychological dimension is to note that our sexual behaviors as well as gender-related behaviors originate from what we sense, think, and feel. On the other hand, the social aspects of gender and sexuality primarily anchor itself in the field of sociology and allied fields such as social psychology. In essence, sociology is the field of science which concerns itself with the human person's realities and experiences as part of groups and institutions and the dynamics of human relationships within them.
Good day, everyone. So today I'm gonna be tackling about the understand the psychosocial dimension, awareness, and intimacy in relationship. So as a continuation, understanding the psychosocial dimension, as what Ms. Dalia said, that psychosocial involves both psychological and social. Our experience of gender and sexuality is generally relational experience. Mong relational siya kay kita as individuals natay kaugaling mo ang apekto pagsabot o pamatasan nga aware ta. Ato sad ginatan-aw ang atong kaugalingon in relation sa klase-klase nga tao nga sila pod na sila kaugalingon preoccupation with one's own emotions, interest, or situation. At the front of our experiences as gendered beings is awareness. Sa pagkalaktod nga storya or simple nga terms is awareness is our conscious understanding of something. Kita as tao as individuals na at pata sa process nga gila-ila na tatong kagalingon. Ako sa gila-ila na ako akong kagalingon po. Nga kinsa unsa jud diri sa kalibutan. We are in constant process of self-awareness nga makapangunta na jud ta nga kinsa ko, unsa ko, what do I like or dislike, what are my strengths or weaknesses, what motivates me, what are my aspirations, like ngayon na. Ako pod, I'm in the process of self-awareness kay wala pa kayo ka nakailas akong kagalingon. Mauna, usay, masuyo ko sa upon kay maayo pa sila, nakailas lang sila sa ilang kagalingon. Of course, we do have different timeline man. So, dili ra madali. We are in an endless process of asking and trying to understand. But then, we are not isolated in a vacuum. We are social beings. We live our lives in relation to others. Hence, as we try to understand ourselves more, we are also in a constant process towards other awareness, that is, understanding others. Second one is intimacy in relationship. In certain situations, when two people recognize and became aware of each other, they decide to keep close distance in each other's lives, share their personal bubbles, so to speak, in a low frequency of interaction between them. Example, talking stage. Pero dili ang romantic relationship ang pwede. Pwede sa sa family, friends, kumban pa diha. This forge of human relationship, bond formed between two or more people manifested through communication and interaction. So as naata diri nga kahimtang or situations kay ato jud i-share ang atong unsay naa sa una-una or atong emotions. We as individuals constantly aim to further understand our own selves as we also try to understand others and be understood by them. This process of knowing others and allowing others to know is intimacy. Ang intimacy dili lang jud pang uyab-uyab or pang friend. Pwede siya pang friendship, family. As social beings, we also learn from our own experiences and from the lessons taught us to by those who have come before us. Man nakatong katong stage nimo, nga daghan siya gitudlo nimo nga ma-learn. Ma-learn din kasi matag-practice sa mga host. Yan ang when. Charot. So, di siya sayop nga tao. Right one siya, pero wrong timing lang. So, how we behave in relation to other people with due consideration to social expectations related to our gender and how we make choices to balance our personal goals and social goals might pass on to us through education and other cultural preoccupations. This process by which we learn cultural norms and traditions is referred to as socializations. That's all. Thank you.
Day, everyone. For now, we will talk about well-being as a psychosocial goal. The ultimate goal of understanding the psychosocial aspects of our experience is well-being, a state of satisfaction, meaning, and purpose. There are two sides to well-being.
One is that kind of well-being which is observed, outward, and can be evaluated through the presence or absence of particular elements in our environment. This is referred to as objective well-being. So, objective well-being di ay is katong kaayuhan nga atong masinati, ma-experience physically, externally. In relation to gender and sexuality, here are some of the questions to ask. Does the physical environment allow expression of diversity? Does the physical infrastructure mitigate any possibility of abuse and violence related to gender? Are material resources, money, and properties equitable available to men, women, and other people with different genders? Are these resources sufficient for them? Are there health systems which cater to gender-related needs? Are there wellness programs that support women, men, and people of different genders? As we noticed, those questions are related to those occurrences or events that helps people, individuals with different genders in our society. Mao na siya sa objective well-being. Ma-observe nato, makita nato, ma-experience nato physically. On the other hand, another side of well-being is our personal experience of satisfaction, meaning, and purpose. So this is all about personal na pod. This is referred to as subjective well-being. It is subjective because it pertains to our own appreciation of how well we are. Sometimes, even the environment fully provides for all our needs. We remain unsatisfied and thus having a low sense of subjective well-being. So subjective well-being referred to those things or experiences nga makasatisfy nato sa atong kaugalingon. Now, all about this. Now, kung moingon tag sa atong kaugalingon, lahi-lahi jud tog mga kalipay, no? Mga butang, mga experiences, or nga makapalipay nato. Mo ni siyang gitawag ni subjective. Kaya it differs, our satisfaction differs from one another. Nausahay nga kanang na mga butang nga makasatisfy nato, while dili di siya makasatisfy sa lain. Charot. Muna nangita siya lain, kaya wa siya nalipay nimo, wa siya nasatisfied nimo. Bitaw, joke ra. Continue ta. There are also moments where the environment has shortcomings, but we are peace and satisfied within. So, napod ko na yung mga panghitabo sa itong kinabuhi nga bisag enough times nga kanang bisag nagkalisod na yung mga tao nga kuan sila, peaceful sila o satisfied na sila silang kaugalingon. Na makarelate ko ni kay kanang one moment in my life naka-experience ko nga bisag dahil ko problema sa outside external sa inside na ako kay na ako'y kalinaw, peace of mind. Og satisfied ko, kontento ko sa unsay na ako. Mo tong time na kanang naimamat na ko si God sa ako ang life. Share rin ako ninyo guys. For dili na ta mas mo go deeper pa na kay. We're not talking about religion man. So in common term, the closest word to subjective well-being is happiness. So subjective well-being is also happiness in itself. So there are questions pertaining to subjective well-being. These are, how far is your sense of satisfaction about the various areas of your life as a sexual being? Is your purpose as a person clear to you? And if not yet, what are you doing to clarify this purpose? So these questions is all about ourselves only. Sa ato ara yung kaugalingon, kita rin makatubag. We have unique answers pod, ani. So, mato siya. Objective and subjective well-being. Objective external, while subjective is internal. Dili lang ko kutob. I hope nasabtan ninyo kung unsa ang well-being as a psychosocial goal. Thank you, and once again, good day.
In social psychology, a stereotype is a generalized belief about a particular category of people. It is an expectation that people might have about every person of a particular group. The type of expectation can vary. It can be, for example, an expectation about the group's personality, preferences, appearance, or ability. Stereotypes are sometimes overgeneralized, inaccurate, and resistant to new information but can sometimes be accurate. There are two types of stereotypes, the explicit and the implicit. Explicit stereotype refers to the stereotypes that one is aware that one holds and is aware that one is using to judge people. If person A is making judgment about a particular person B from a group G, and person A has an explicit stereotypes for group G, their decision bias can be partially mitigated using conscious control. However, attempts to offset bias due to conscious awareness of a stereotype often fail at being truly impartial due to either underestimating or overestimating the amount of bias being created by the stereotype. Implicit stereotypes are those that lay on individuals' subconsciousness that they have no control or awareness of. Implicit stereotypes are built based on two concepts: associative networks in semantic knowledge, memory, and automatic activation. Implicit stereotypes are automatic and involuntary associations that people make between a social group and domain or attribute. For example, one can have beliefs that women and men are equally capable of becoming successful electricians, but at the same time, many can associate electricians more with men than women. Prejudice is an assumption or an opinion about someone simply based on that person's membership to a particular group. For example, people can be prejudiced against someone or else of a different ethnicity, gender, or religion. If someone is acting on their prejudices, they are prejudging someone before even getting to know them on a deeper level. This is an irrational attitude and mindset which does no good for anyone involved. Prejudice comes from the Latin prejudicium, or injustice, and prejudicium, prior judgment, which refers to judicial examination before trial. For example, a person might have a lot of preconceived ideas about someone who is Christian, Muslim, or Jewish and will allow this judgment to affect the way they view and treat those people. The same can be true for people who are black, white, or Asian. Common features of prejudice include negative feelings, stereotype beliefs, tendency to discriminate against members of a group. In society, we often see prejudices toward a group based on race, sex, religion, culture, and more. While specific definitions of prejudice given by social scientists often differ, most agree that it involves prejudgment that are usually negative about members of a group.
Discrimination. This refers to actions or behavior towards an individual or a certain group. And according to the United Nations, Discriminatory behavior takes many forms, but they are all involved of some form of exclusion or rejection. People who are discriminated on are those people who are treated worse than the way people are usually treated just because they don't belong to a certain group or they have certain characteristics. I will be giving at least 4 examples of discrimination. First would be genocide. It is the action of recognizing someone as different so much that they are treated inhumanly and degraded. Second would be apartheid. It means separateness. It is a form of racial discrimination wherein one race is viewed as less than the other. Resulting in the separation is the black and whites and the mass murder of Jews in concentration camps. Third would be gender discrimination. It is another common form of discrimination. Statistically, women now earn less than men and are often regulated to be solely responsible for child rearing and doing the household chores. Men, on the other hand, are discriminated in household responsibilities such they are perceived as less manly when they do their shares of doing the household chores and when they became a stay-at-home parents or a husband. Lastly is LGBT discrimination. It happens when LGBT people are treated as lesser than straight people. Discrimination happens early in their childhood as they get bullied when they act differently or dress differently than any other kids. And during their adolescence, they get judged, bullied, or physically assaulted as they explored and expressed their own sexuality. Restricting opportunities or privileges that may be available to another group is discrimination, like the right to vote in national elections. In the Philippines, women only gained the right to vote in 1937, and before that, Filipino women had no legal rights to even own a property. That form of institutional discrimination was based on illogical or irrational judgment that women are weaker than men. Freedom and equality. According to Article 1 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or UDHR, it states that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. This declaration was drafted by member countries of the United Nations, including the Philippines in 1948. This monumental document outlines the fundamental rights of every human being that should be protected by everyone at all times. Its preamble recognizes that the inherent rights of all members of the human family is in the world. Dignity and the equal of inalienable foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. While discriminatory traditions, policies, ideas, practices, and law exist in many countries, many have shifted towards making opportunities and privileges accessible to everyone. In many countries, people of the same sex can now get married and create their own families while enjoying the same right as straight couples. In the Philippines, all establishments are now required by law to have an access ramp for people with disabilities. Appreciating diversity of human race is the key to making a safer and more exclusive environment for everyone, regardless of the sex, race, religion, and sexuality, gender, or creed.
Since 1970s, studies on different aspects of manhood were made, from men in the labor market to men in the family and violent men. And by the 20th century came, these numbers of studies increased dramatically. A growing body of literature terrorizing men and masculinities focuses on a variety of topics. These includes men's violence, fatherhood, pornography, men's crime, female masculinity, male femininity, and etc. And as these studies arose despite the clear dominance of men over global economic and political power. Men make up a large majority of corporate executives, top professionals, and holder of public office. And according to Gerich in 1999, men held up 93% of cabinet level posts in 1996 and most top positions in international agencies worldwide. Essentialist views of gender are so popular and are constantly reinforced in the media. However, they are increasingly under challenge, not only in biology but also in everyday life. The rise of women's liberation movement and many feminisms that have followed on from it produce a massive disturbance in the gender system and people's assumption about gender. Large number of men now acknowledge that their position is under challenge and that what they took once for granted about the most retaught, making men's studies and masculinity became popular. The quote, "Men are now the gender victims as a result of feminism having gone too far, with men having increased responsibilities but few rights around issues of marriage, love, divorce, child custody, and access to children," is by the art of Warren Farrell in his work The Myth of Male Power, entitled Why Are Men the Disposable Sex in 1994. It is one of the main founding texts of these lobby. Modern legislation is seen to be overprotective of women's interests, resulting in discrimination against men at a time when they are under increasing threat within a rapidly changing society. Still, some researchers argue that this pro-male movement were only a reaction to feminism, which is an attempt to cause women and feminists for creating problems that men encounter in society.
What is multiple masculinity? Accordingly, there is no one pattern of masculinity that is found everywhere. Different cultures and different periods of history construct masculinity differently. Some cultures make heroes of soldiers and regard violence as the ultimate test of masculinity. Other cultures look at soldiering with disdain and regard violence as contemptible. Some countries can regard sila as homosexual sex as incompatible with true masculinity, and other countries kay mo kuan sila nga no one person can be a real tinuod nga lalaki if wala sila kanang wa sila kasaway og relationship nga kanang homosexual. Then the meaning of masculinity in working class life is different from the meaning in the middle class life, and same goes among very rich and very poor. And it's even possible that more than one kind of masculinity can be found within given cultural settings and within specific class. 2005 suggests that there is that there is more than one kind of masculinity, and what is considered masculine differs from the race, class, ethnicity, sexuality, and gender. For example, being knowledgeable about computer and might be understood as masculine because it can help a person accumulate income and wealth, and we consider a wealth to be a masculine. And however, computer knowledge only translates into masculinity for certain men, while an Asian American middle class might get a boost in masculinity points as it were for his high-paying job with computers. The same might not be true for a working class white man whose white-collar desk job may be seen as weakness to his masculinity by other working class men. Expectations for masculinity differ by age, and what it means to be a man at 19 is very different than what it means to be a man at 70. Therefore, masculinity intersects with other identities and expectations change accordingly.
So typically, some masculinities are more revered than others. And when we say revered, it is somehow similar to the word admire, respect. So when we say revere than others, there is more respect or there is more admiration to that specific someone or something that the others. Others may be dishonored, like homosexual masculinities in modern Western culture, or even the socially marginalized, like the masculinities of disempowered ethnic minorities. Others may also be even exemplary. Exemplary is similar to the word perfect, flawless. It is as taken symbolizing admired traits like the masculinities of sporting heroes. The form of masculinity which is culturally dominant in a given setting is called hegemonic masculinity. When we say hegemonic masculinity, it means signifies a position of cultural authority and leadership but not total dominance as other forms of masculinity persist alongside bitaw. Like hegemonic masculinity embodies popular heroes, roles, and fictional characters. And according to Kimmel in 1997, hegemonic masculinity contains within the image of the man in power, in a man with power, and a man of power. We equate manhood with being strong, successful, capable, reliable, in control. Where in the very definition of manhood we have developed in our culture maintain the power that some men have over other men and that men have over other women. Hegemonic masculinity was understood as a pattern of practice that is allows men's dominance over women to continue. Hegemonic masculinity embodied the currently most honored way of being a man, as it required all other men to position themselves in relation to it, and it ideologically legitimate the global subordination of women to men. Men who receive the benefits of patriarchy without enacting a strong version of masculine dominance could be regarded as showing a complicit masculinity. Hegemony did not mean violence, although it could be supported by force, but it meant ascendancy achieved through culture, institution, and persuasion. Hegemonic masculinity in Western society hinges on heterosexual economic autonomy, being able to provide for one's family, being rational, being successful, keeping one's emotion in check, and above all, not doing anything considered feminine. Hegemonic male norms stress values such as courage, aggression, autonomy, mastery, technological skill, adventure, toughness in mind and body. Moreover, hegemonic masculinity is homogenic not just in relation to other masculinities, but in relation to other gender order as well. It is an expression of the privilege men collectively have over women. The hierarchy of masculinities is an expression of the unequal shares in that privilege held by different groups of men. Thus, some masculinity are deemed as higher than the others, as well as higher than other form of gender.
Now in continuation, we will be tackling about the third masculinity theme, and that is collective masculinities. Collective masculinities are gender structures of a society define particular patterns of conduct of individuals as either masculine or feminine. So again, masculine or feminine, that is what we call collective masculinities. These patterns also exist at the collective level in institutions, such as corporations, armies, governments, and even schools. So these patterns exist everywhere we go, as what I have mentioned. Now on to masculinities and well-being. Barker 2011 confirms that a strong association between rigid norms about what it means to be a man and men's negative health practices and vulnerabilities. On to the family formation, fathering, caregiving, and domestic roles. Domestic roles are closely associated with women, as carrying them out can involve a loss of face for men. Great deal was heard about increases in women's labor force participation in recent decades, but less about men's caregiving and domestic roles. So in domestic roles or family formation, fathering, caregiving, men aren't really that much noticed. So in these areas of society, women tend to be more numbered than men. Okay, so masculinities and alcohol and drug abuse. More men drink than women, and men drink more than women. Study shows that women, or men rather, were more likely to drink than women, drank alcohol in greater quantity and more frequently than women, and were more likely to face alcohol-related health and social problems than women. So for masculinities and alcohol use, men tend to be in the side of alcohol usage rather than women. They also intend to intake alcohol more than the average or more than how women drink. So that will be all for the third masculinity theme. I hope you have learned something from our report.